What's up everybody, Just Brewing here. Welcome back to the home brewery for another grain to glass video. As you can tell, we're actually in the middle of a brew day right now, but the beer I want to talk to you about isn't this one. It's one that I brewed a few weeks ago, one that I've been really excited to share with you, but maybe not for the reasons that you think. I brewed a peanut butter pretzel porter. Now, that beer itself, on paper, the recipe, it looks awesome, and I can't wait to give this another go, but full disclosure, the beer did not turn out the way I wanted it to. Now, I am one to admit my mistakes, whether that's in the brewery or outside the brewery. I try to be completely honest with not just myself, but everyone around me, because there's no point in hiding this mistake. There's no point in not telling people about it, because the mistake that I made, I want no one else to make. I want to make sure that if anyone wants to try these types of recipes and be as experimental as I am, you got to know some of the goods and the bads as well, because really, no brew day is perfect, and sometimes things don't go the way they're supposed to. If this is the kind of content that you like, make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you want to support me and the channel, you can visit justbrewing.com, where you can make donations directly to me to help with some of the costs of equipment and ingredients and things like that. If you want to support the channel with some merch, I'm actually not wearing any right now, but all merch proceeds are going to go to charity, specifically the Know Your Rights campaign. So if you want to support me in the channel, visit justbrewing.com. Now, the beer itself, it's actually still in the bucket right now. I haven't tasted it in a little bit, but I am gonna get this video uploaded because I think it's important to shed light on these mistakes. Now, I have done this a few times in the past, and I will continue to do it as I continue to experiment and continue to mess things up. I'll let you know what I did and what I did wrong, what went right. Just because, as I mentioned earlier, I don't want people to make these same mistakes. So let's go ahead and get right into brew day. Brew day starts with about 7.5 gallons of reverse osmosis water. I am going to treat this water, and if you're looking for the water profile, click the link in the description. I'm going to treat this, get this up to temp, and mash in my grain bill. On screen now are the grains that I'm using. This is a recipe that I've used before, and it's one that I like a lot. And Maris Otter is my go-to base malt for these types of beers. We're going to be mashing for 1 hour at about 150 degrees Fahrenheit. Generally speaking, porters and stouts, you can mash in a little bit higher, around the 154, 156 range. The reason I'm not is because a lot of the beers that I brew, when they ferment out, sometimes there's a little bit more residual sugar than I typically want. And I'm planning for that this time around, so I'm going to keep my mash a little bit low so that if it doesn't ferment all the way out and there is some residual sugar that doesn't get fermented, that should keep me around the expected final gravity for a beer of this style. Now, what is the peanut butter pretzel porter without the pretzels? Now, when it comes down to it, I am just gonna grab some pretzels off the shelf. Here, I'm adding about 2.5 pounds into the mash itself, and I will be adding some at the end of the boil, as well as during fermentation as well. I really want the pretzel to come through, and in my head, this is a way to do that. After our 1 hour mash is done, we're gonna yank our grains, get our controller up all the way to 100% so we can get this bad boy to a boil. We're gonna be doing a 30-minute boil, and at the top of our boil, we're gonna add our only hop addition, that's 1 ounce of nugget. Nugget hops should give us some nice woody, resiny flavors, and I think that's gonna be really helpful for the kind of style that we're going for, but I do want the peanut butter and the pretzel to kind of shine in this beer. As our boil comes to an end, I'm going to pull a little bit of the wort out of my main kettle and get it into a smaller kettle so that I can mix in my PB Fit. Now, this is powdered peanut butter that a number of my YouTube, BrewTube, airplanes, man. As our boil comes to an end, we're going to pull some of the wort out of our main kettle and into a smaller kettle so that we can add our powdered peanut butter. This is PB Fit, and it's really common for brewers to use this in place of what could be real peanut butter because of the oils and things like that that can be in it. That can be really detrimental to a beer and can destroy things like your head retention. So I'm going with powdered peanut butter, as many of my BrewTuber friends would, and I'm gonna add this with about 5 or so minutes left in the boil. Once the powdered peanut butter is dissolved in the smaller kettle, we're gonna add it back into the main kettle, let it mix back in, and then we're going to chill it down so that we can pitch our yeast. For yeast, we're going with White Labs English Ale yeast. This is probably my go-to yeast for a porter and certain stouts. It's relatively clean, and I do think it's gonna give us just enough of those esters, but not overpower the peanut butter or the pretzel. To help give a little bit of visibility into the fermentation itself, I'm gonna drop in a wrapped pill floating hydrometer. Now, this is Kegland's version of the tilt. It's Kegland's version of the iSpindle. It's really simple, but it's actually surprisingly affordable considering these are not generally available in the US, so I did get a little help from a friend out of the US to get this shipped to me, and even buying two and paying for shipping and a little bit of extra cushion, it was still cheaper than buying two tilt hydrometers. So super happy with this purchase, and I will let you know my real thoughts as I've gotten to use it in more than just this one brew day. I add the hydrometer, seal it up, and I put it away where it's gonna ferment at about 68, 69 degrees Fahrenheit for about 2 weeks. So, did you see the mistake that I made? Did you catch it? Probably not. The mistake I made was actually before the camera was on, before my water was hot, before my grains were milled. It all started actually before brew day. Now, I know the beer went wrong, thanks to the wrapped pill, that was what kind of shed light on the mistake. It stopped fermenting about 2 days in, which is crazy because, this is a strong beer. It was supposed to be about 7% or so. I would expect this beer to be done in like a week or two, not 3 days. And when I noticed that it wasn't dropping any further than where the current gravity was, I was thinking, okay, well, it's done, but it's probably that the pill, that I calibrated it incorrectly. It's probably just fine. I took a sample and noticed no, in fact, the gravity, hovering around 1030 was in fact correct, and I tasted the sample and it was terrible. My wife almost threw up after she tried it because it was so bad. Now, it was bad because it was super salty. So obviously something went wrong, specifically in the mash. Where is the salt coming from? The salt came from the pretzels. I got salted pretzels, not thinking about it, and that salt threw off the water chemistry in the mash, which ultimately messed up my efficiency, which left some of those sugars left unfermented, which, it's a bad beer, so I'm probably gonna end up dumping it. Now, it is still in the bucket right now. I kind of just let it alone. We, went on a little bit of a vacation to San Diego, video on that coming soon. I don't know about you, but I'm not a big fan of drinking bad beer. I actively try not to drink bad beer, and forcing myself to drink 5 gallons of this because I made a mistake or just so that the money doesn't go to waste, to me is not worth it. I learned something, and that is, worth it by itself. Sure, this cost me a little bit of money, but at the end of the day, I'm the one stuck with the result. So I'm gonna pour it out. If I decide not to, follow me on Instagram and you may see, I may put an update video on there. But as of where I'm standing, how I am right now, I'm not gonna be doing anything with this beer. It's gonna go down the drain just to make way for the next beer. So I can't wait to do this again. And hopefully if you do this, you don't make the same mistake that I did. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on this whole thing. One, if you would do this, two, how you would do it differently, because I can tell you exactly how I'm gonna do it differently. I can't wait to do this again, and I have no problem using that beer as a learning experience if it makes the next one better. Thanks for viewing, Just Brewing.